Hi, this is Laura back from Healing with Spirit. This is actually part 2 after the energy update and end of July 2020. What's happening and how do we move, with 4 tips on how to move forward. So if you missed that video, there will be a link for you to revisit that. This video, we're going to be talking about an aspect that we do mention in the other video, which is the dark night of the soul, which is what we've been experiencing, and many of us, and feeling like you just can't get past it, and just one thing just gets toppled over after another. And as I mentioned in the other video, I talk a lot about the Tower card in Tarot. It's that major disruptor. It's the sudden change and upheaval. So the dark night of the soul, it's like, what is it? The dark night of the soul can be best explained as a disintegration, or the process of losing cohesion or strength or coming into pieces. Take that, right? The process of losing cohesion or strength or coming to pieces, because the reality that formerly was known to you, our version of reality that had been explored and suddenly become torn apart piece by piece. So again, that's like the Tower card, right, in Tarot. So it's like all that reality of what we knew has basically been taken and shredded, been torn apart. So what was once solid has now become fluid. Again, what we talked about last is the flow, right? Has become fluid. And once was known is now we're moving into a place of mystery, right? So essentially the dark night of the soul isn't just like I'm having a bad day. It's a complete reboot of our entire energetic operating system, or like a DNA recoding boot up, okay? So you want to think of, as I mentioned before, the Tower in Tarot, all right? And there was a physician, Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, that mentioned as a description this idea of shamanic transformation. And what he says is that the process of transformation appears as a means by which cognitive systems are updated when necessary. The effect that is released during the process is necessarily part of the experience, and every major step forward, therefore, has some of the aspect of the revolutionary descent into madness. So if you've been thinking like, I must be going nuts, I can't take it anymore, I feel like I'm going to break. Have you been there? I've been there. Have you been there more than once? Yep. Okay. So as a trauma survivor, yes, because I have a lot to unveil, a lot to reveal, a lot to heal, to be able to step into the personal power. So what does this mean with the dark night of the soul? That pain or that trauma that maybe we experienced is not necessarily in vain. So this is where we have this class that I have that you might want to look into, called, it's about how to bless your junk. And it's about taking that pain and transforming it into like your superpower or a place of empowerment. It's where you get your strength from. So and it also reveals what may have been hidden, or that lesson to be learned at the end of that darkness, so that we can evolve and become better humans. So once the ego kind of gets everything under control, when we kind of, and our soul kind of helps get us into alignment, then life itself becomes something to enjoy as we move through everything else then with ease, after we come out of this darkness part, and seeing it for the reality of what it is versus what we're trying to convince it to be. It is as if this darkness, this dark night, right? And I always remind myself when I was going through some really dark times, and reminding myself that it's always darkest before dawn. The dawn always comes no matter how dark it is outside. The dawn always returns. And I remember used to saying, like, when I felt like I was so stuck, and I would just be like, the dawn is coming, the dawn is coming, the dawn is coming, the dawn is coming, it is coming. So this is as if the dark night is a rite of passage that occurs when our egoic mind, or that trauma phase, whatever it is ready to break free from those old stories, from those old traumas, the tyranny, the abuse, the illusions of what we thought our reality was. Okay? This is where our emotions can change due to the slightest trigger. The darkness, even despair, can become our friend and thought to be of being of once we were to becoming the unthinkable, while simultaneously not knowing who else we would be. Like, I wouldn't know how to help people with trauma, or how to turn it and how to master the triggers as actually a superpower, if I didn't go through the darkness to unveil it all, right? So this is a spiritual transformation that is painful. All right. For those of you who've been around me long enough, have been hearing me say, healing freaking sucks. It does. Because when you face those dark parts of yourself, it is not easy. And it's the same thing. When we go through the dark night of the soul, it's like the caterpillar that goes into the cocoon, that chrysalis phase, where it annihilates anything and everything of what was the into liquidity, and then rebuilds what was the caterpillar into form known as the butterfly. So this is probably the best analogy I have for you as to what the dark night of the soul could look like, right? So, and sometimes when we go through this darkness, we don't realize the connection that we have to go through this, that it could be also for good. And until we learn this, and we apply it, and we apply these lessons, and we apply these places of growth and evolution, we're going to keep repeating these lessons and patterns until we get it. Life has a funny way of always altering and bringing these experiences in our way. So in a sense, this dark night of the soul is an entire event, or a series of events, that is death and rebirth. So an example would be like, one moment life seems to be going along just fine. You think everything is great. Maybe you just got married, just bought a house. You have the dream car, the dream spouse, the dream everything. And next thing you know, boom, something happens like COVID, right? And suddenly you're drowning in our own self-doubt, the uneasiness about the future. Maybe you lost your job. Maybe you're fighting all of a sudden with your spouse. Nothing seems certain anymore. And these dark episodes seem to come almost unrelenting, without any signs of coming up. And you're like, I can't take another wave. I just can't take another wave. It just becomes very unrelenting. And then when our world, which was then predictable, is shattered. It's like the hammer came down and broke the glass and shattered and broke everything into pieces, into some anomaly that we don't recognize. And we either let it engulf us into realms of like anxiety, fear, PTSD, all these things, or we can use it as a magnifying glass, or I like to say, as a clue on the treasure map to help us focus to where the buried treasure is and the meaning of life, and a version of reality, what we came here to live and be. So given that we can't go through this with our own kind of competence, we kind of need some sort of struggle. Every major guru or enlightened being, whether it's Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Usui Sensei, whoever it might be, all had to have some sort of struggle, right? That's the enlightenment process. So that we can learn to appreciate the times that we are tested the most, right? We don't know light without darkness. We don't know darkness without light. It's the balance. So it's always darkest before dawn, right? This is how we welcome the dark night of the soul. When we can welcome that dark side of ourselves, that moment in time where maybe depression, psychosis, maybe a nervous breakdown, maybe we hit rock bottom, maybe we're feeling suicidal, and then all of a sudden these feelings are kind of lost into hopelessness, and we may feel like an everyday occurrence is just too much. It's just too much for us to handle, right? This is kind of maybe what a lot of us have been experiencing in the month of July in this year 2020. And you might even feel like you're about to break and you don't know how much more you can handle. And it might be the best thing that can ever happen to our own soul's evolution. This is where we know what our gifts are. This is how we evolve. This is where we discover what our superpowers are and how to take all these things that were in the darkness and turn them into gems. These are just clues to the treasures on the treasure map. What we're experiencing right now is a restructuring, which I mentioned in the other video. So this is a restructuring. And then what we do is when the tower collapses, right? It's about rebuilding. So how do we rebuild? With a solid foundation from a place of soul, less about ego, but an equal power. Not one supersedes the other. It's about balance. It's the yin, it's the yang, it's the ego, it's the soul, it's the penetrative, it's the receptive, right? It's the flow, it's the duality. This is what we're learning, and this is the opportunity. So if you're going through this very dark night, it doesn't mean that you don't call in reinforcements to help you, through the process, and maybe help you understand that you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Things are going to be transformational for you. But you cannot become the butterfly if you were stuck in living the life of a caterpillar. We have to liquefy. This is where we're at. We've been talking about this in these coming days for years. Those have been following me, or those have been following various other astrologers or psychics, have been saying the same thing. These are the times that we have been preparing for. This is a big time for evolution, and it's time for us as humans to step up and into our power and as stewards for the life of all beings on this planet. So I'm hoping you find this video informational, and if you wanted more on the other video that we did for the month of July and moving into the 4 tips and moving into the rest of 2020 into the last quarter, then we'll also have a link there as well for you to view. In the meantime, have a great day, and be sure to check out the upcoming classes, the Bless Your Junk class, the Self-Care for the Empath During Times of Crisis, which is an 8-week virtual class, the upcoming Jikin and Reiki training, which will be in the fall, as well as our Mornings with Laura Facebook Lives, 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, those mornings. Those are free, and more than welcome to also book a one-on-one session. So I leave you with the blessings of spirit, and arigato gozaimashita. Have a great day, everybody.